So, I have a question, and this question's probably going to be more directed towards men, but here's a brief synopsis of what happened. So, I met this guy, I met him online, and he didn't live here. I didn't know that he did not live in the same state as me until after we had actually started talking. Once I started talking to him, he was really nice. We had a great conversation. We could keep it going. It was awesome. We really connected. And so I was like, maybe we should meet. So he had planned to come here like 2 weeks after we had started talking. He made arrangements. So here's the backstory on him. He's retired. He loves to travel. He has that flexibility of doing so. I am employed, as we know, and I don't make a lot of money. I don't have the flexibility that he does. And before he came here, I told him, I don't have that kind of flexibility. I also am not in the same financial situation that you are. And he's kept putting it off and putting it off. So we did meet. We really enjoyed each other. We, got along great, even to the point where I had planned to go there. So a couple weeks later, I went to where he lives. He paid for the trip and everything. Everything was moving along awesome. We talked every day. We even planned a trip to go to Cabo in January. He's like, hey, can you get the time off if we go to Cabo in January? And I'm like, I don't know, let me check. Sure enough, I could get it off. I have PTO. It starts over in January, so I get paid for it. No problem. Took the week or so off that needed to be for us to take this trip. So he's talking about the trip and everything, and so me, being who I am, did not want him to think that I was going to expect him to pay for everything. So I asked, hey, is there something that you would like me to pay for on this trip? And he said, how about you? He goes, I would like you to pay for your plane ticket. Or I was thinking about you paying for your plane ticket. I'm like, okay. And he's like, is that going to be a problem? And I said, well, right now, I'm buying new tires for my car so that I can drive up to see you in a couple weeks. I go, so right now is probably not the best time. I said, but it doesn't mean that I can't probably eventually pay you back for it. He goes, well, I'll buy the tickets. He goes, I know you're going to be good for it. Okay. I'm thinking, all right, I guess I could work overtime. So we had made arrangements. He bought those tickets 7 days before he came back here to visit me, because we were trying to keep it like every 2 weeks where we saw each other. And he came here. I have no idea what changed when he got back here. 2 days he was here, and on the third day, the vibe just changed. I don't know what it was. I have no idea what the switch was. We were having a really good time, I thought. I mean, I did have to work one day while he was here. He knew that prior to coming. And then he left. And when he left, I'm like, there's something wrong. And he goes, I just don't think we're in the same place. He goes, and I don't know where we can bridge that gap. And I'm like, what are you referring to? And he said, financially, you're not where I am. He's like, and I want to travel more. He goes, and I don't believe that you have that capability of doing that. You were so informed about all of this before we met. I made sure of that because I wanted you to be aware, have all the information you needed before we met, so we didn't waste each other's time. And yet, here we are. We wasted my time. I feel like my time was completely wasted because I was all in. But then he brought up the fact that he's like, you have your job there. He's like, the place I live doesn't really have a lot of job opportunities. He's like, and if you moved here, he's like, I would actually have to be financial supporting you. And I'm just like, whoa, hold up. I never gave you any indication that if I moved with you or moved in with you, that you would be financially responsibility for me. As a matter of fact, because he wanted to move to Florida, he's like, hey, if I moved to Florida, would you move with me? Absolutely. If we were in a relationship, I would go wherever you wanted to go. I go, my company has a campus there. I could go work there. He wanted to move to Cabo. He's like, if I moved to Cabo permanently, he said, would you move there with me? Absolutely. If it meant that we were supposed to be together and that's where you wanted to go, I'd move to Cabo with you. I said, as a matter of fact, I could probably become a realtor in Cabo. So all these places, I'm sitting there thinking about where I could work. And he brings up the fact that he would be financially responsible for me. I'm like, oh my God. You were so freaking aware of all of this before we got involved of what my financial situation was, where I lived. Because then he also brought up, the distance is becoming an issue. I'm like, it's been 8 weeks. I don't know how it's been an issue, but everything was great until he got here. So needless to say, he had to cancel that trip. But also, my question is to the men. If you are in a relationship and you invite a woman to go on a trip with you, do you expect her to pay? I'd like to hear what you have to say.